Hey y'all. Well, in this session of the Bible study, I kind of want to talk about what we're going to be doing this summer. So this is kind of like a Bible study slash promotional um, video for the summer trips that we're going to have, both the youth trip and the college and career trip to Mountain Area Ministries. Um, so I want to show you first of all some pictures of what we did or what we have done over the years, last year and then some years before. Just show you some pictures of some of the activities we're going to do and that sort of thing. And then I'll talk about why we do these trips. Why do we go to uh, Mountain Area Ministries instead of some other camp? Okay, so we're going to talk about the summer trips here. And you can see that it's Mountain Area Ministries. We call it a training retreat, and we'll talk about that later on. But we have two trips. Of course, one is for the youth. That is June 6th through 11th. That is a Sunday through a Friday. And the second one is the very next week, June 13th through 18th. That's also a Sunday through a Friday. The cost for both of those trips is $250. We will split that up into two installments of $125 each. Be looking on Facebook for the due dates for those. We'll post those as notices. But let's talk about a little bit more about this camp for those that are new and were not at the parents' meeting last fall. You can see that we will stay. Our base camp is actually a Christian school. It's Mountain Area Christian Academy. It is in Morganton, Georgia. It is almost halfway between Blue Ridge, Georgia, and Blairsville, Georgia. And you can see that it's really close to the Tennessee line right here. In fact, we will actually cross into Tennessee for part of the camp because we will whitewater raft on the Ocoee River, which you can see is around here. All right. The director of the camp, Mountain Area Ministries, is a good friend of mine, Steve Shamlin. We go way back. We started in camping ministry together many years ago. And he also happens to be the head principal at Macca, Mountain Area Christian Academy. And that's, of course, why we get to stay at the school. Here is a picture from a couple of years ago before we left in front of the school, Mountain Area Christian Academy. Here's a fun shot of that same year. And then here's a picture last year before we headed out to go home. You can see that all of our students there are holding little mini pies. That was because of this gracious young man right here, Todd, who helped out during the week. He was a senior at Macca, and before we left, he wanted to do something for us, so he ran to the store and got all these little snack pies for each of us. So that's the kind of folks that are up in that area. How do we get to Macca? Well, basically it's I-20 all the way until we get to Atlanta, then we turn north. We have gone 59 through Chattanooga, but there's always construction in Chattanooga, so we try to usually avoid Chattanooga. You can see it's about a 7 hour and 14-minute drive if you go straight, but usually we stop on the way, several, of course, for gas and for restroom breaks and for meals. In fact, we didn't get to this last year because of COVID, but usually we stop halfway at Birmingham at the Galleria on the bypass around Birmingham to eat lunch and stretch our legs. We usually stay there for about an hour. And then once we finally make it up into the Blue Ridge area, we eat at Papa's Pizza Buffet for our evening meal before we end up going to the camp and get settled in. So staying at Macca at the Christian school, you may think, well, it's not a traditional camp. Well, no, it's not, but it's still a great place to stay. You get 3 meals a day, breakfast, lunch, and supper. Here's a picture on the left of us eating breakfast one of the days in the school cafeteria. Of course, they have a basketball gym inside, and then outside they have this gaga ball pit, which you see on the right. So what are the components? Well, every day we have 2 Bible studies a day, one in the morning and then one in the evening. We always start out with a quiet time. Each of the students gets a quiet time in a study guide, Bible passage to look at and to think about. And there's a study book that goes with it. That's what's going on in the right picture. And in the left, we're in the midst of Bible study and looking at passages and writing down things that we've discussed. So that happens twice a day. It is the most important thing that we do. And of course, all the activities are tied into the Bible study. So one of the activities we do is adventure recreation. This is a team building exercise type games. This is from several years ago. We didn't get to do Adventure Rec last year. We're planning on doing it this year, but this is the game here basically was you had to get all the team members across an area of the field with only a pole, a piece of rope, 6x8, and then those 3 hard plastic drainage tubes there. So it was a hard problem to solve, but the youth ended up doing it that year. We also usually have a small mission project every week that we go, every year that we go. Last year it was helping around the school, cleaning up in the school, sorting. They have a clothes ministry for people in the area. So we sorted clothes, we moved chairs, and of course we have fun doing it. Even though sometimes it's hard work, we make some of this work fun. We also, usually in that afternoon, we swim at the Blue Holes or the Lake Blue Ridge. This is the Blue Holes. This is the upper part of the Ocoee River. It's actually the part where they did the kayaking competition way back in the 1996 Olympics. Of course, the water is off. The TVA controls it. And so when the water's off, the water is very low, and it creates these big pools that you can swim at. Usually for supper, we swim all day there in the afternoon, and then we end up cooking out. They have a nice picnic area. We cook out, and then we come back and have our Bible study. Another activity, usually on a Tuesday, we will go spelunking or to Jacks River Falls. Spelunking is caving, if you're not familiar with that term. We didn't do that last year, but this is a picture from spelunking from 2 years ago, I believe. You can see that we did some exploring, and that we wear helmets for protection, as you can see in the top pictures and all. And then this is Jacks River. This is a 3-mile hike into a double waterfall. The trailhead is up at the left, and again we have fun. Top right picture, a couple of nutty people there, 3 nutty people. This picture here is what you see at the top of the very first waterfall. It's a double waterfall. This is a jump that you can do. It's about a maybe 15-foot jump, maybe 20-foot jump into the pool at the lower waterfall. This is the lower waterfall, just the big pool that's there. You can see it's a lot of fun swimming, cold mountain water though. This is the lower falls, and there is a jump too. It's a little bit higher, it's about a 30-foot. You can see one of our students taking the leap into the waterfall there. Repelling and rock climbing, that's always on a Wednesday. Rock climbing is maybe, just depending on how fast we can do rappel and how many people we do, and if there's other folks up at the mountain, because it is a public area. You can either rappel conventional, which is on the left, or Aussie, which is on the right once you get conventional, if you're comfortable with the conventional rappel. And then here's a picture of rock climbing. We rock climb the same rock face that we rappel down. It's about a 70-foot maybe rock wall. And the goal is, of course, is to make it all the way at the top. You can see one of our students climbing here. And at the very top, somebody's coming down Australian style here. We got a good treat last year after rappelling. This is the first year we've done this. There is a spot on the drive back from the Repel site to the camp or to the school that's called Go Forth Creek, and it's a nice little, just refreshing swimming hole, and that's what we did. We just kind of took some time and cooled off after that hike, and all day being up on the mountain. Thursdays is always whitewater rafting day, and here's a picture of our group last year, ready to go whitewater rafting. And one of the best experiences, we always use Wild Water Outfitters. They are the most professional people on the river, the best record, the best trained guides, the cheapest price for if we go through Mountain Area Ministries, and the best experience that we can have. And afterwards, we usually end up eating at Pat's Country Kitchen, which is a family style restaurant. They were actually closed last year because of COVID and the restrictions, but the owner, who knows us because we come up there every year and knows Steve, the director, very well, opened just for us, and they did she did a meal for us outside. She put all the food on the platters on tables outside, and everybody just came through and served. Usually we're inside and we just pass the platters. But it is one of the best meals of the whole week. The food at the camp is good, but we always look forward to this meal. So the trip home was basically the same way that we came. Again, sometimes we go through Chattanooga, usually not, but we come home the same route, and then we all again stop at the Galleria in Birmingham for lunch on the way back. So now that you've seen some pictures and kind of got an idea what we do at this camp, Mountain Area Ministries, why do we do this? Why do we go to Mountain Area Ministries every year instead of a place like Centrifuge or Xfuge or even Super Summer, which is local? I mean, why not go to those camps? Well, I've been to those camps and I've taken some youth to those camps before. And while they are good camps and they do have an impact on the lives of youth in particular, because most of these camps are for youth, you have great speakers, you have great music, and usually youth have a great time at these camps. But to be honest, that's about all they have is a great time at these camps. Yeah, there's some great speakers, there's some great music, there's some good lessons, and the high from those camps may last for a week, maybe 2 weeks, but eventually that high is gone. And so it's kind of, and I don't want to necessarily step on any toes, but those kind of camps are kind of like a woohoo type of camp. And Mountain Area Ministries is not that type of camp. Mountain Area Ministries is a get down and dirty type camp. There are some fun activities, as you've seen, but there are some really deep spiritual lessons that are learned through those activities. Every activity that we do has a purpose and relates to the Bible studies that we have at that camp. There's 2 Bible studies a day, as I've said before. And then you have all these other activities, and every activity always comes up in the discussion of the Bible study and lessons that can be learned from those activities, from those actual physical activities. And guys, as an educator, I know that there is proof that the more a person is involved physically in their education, in what they're learning, the more they're going to retain it. That's why I don't let kids type out their notes in class on their computers. I make them handwrite their notes. It's a proven fact that when you write something down, you retain it better. And when you're doing these types of camps that I'm talking about, there's a lot of hoopla in woohoo type camps. But when you're with Mountain Area Ministries, you are experiencing the camp in a complete way, in a whole way, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And that's what we're called to do, is to love God. I mean, Brother Brandon has said it numerous times. The first and greatest commandment is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, body, and strength. That's what this camp is designed to do. And those other camps really don't measure up to that. Plus, it's also very cheap compared to these other camps. And it's all-inclusive type thing. But as far as the Bible says, there are some scriptures that back this up, and some reasons why we go to Mountain Area Ministries. And the first one is there's 5 purposes of what I call a training camp, which is what this is. And the first one is found in Philippians 1, 27 to 28. So let me read that for you. Philippians 1, 27 to 28 says, "Whatever happens, conduct yourselves in a manner worthy of the gospel of Christ. Then, whether I come and see you or only hear about you in my absence, I will know that you stand firm in one spirit, striving together as one for the faith of the gospel, without being frightened in any way by those who oppose you." Let me say that again. Stand firm in one spirit. That's what you learn to do at Mountain Area Ministries. You learn teamwork. You learn unity. You learn to stand together as one group. It's a lost art of group accountability. It's a lost art in school. It's a lost art in a lot of times in business organizations. The only place that hadn't been lost that I know of is the military, although there may be some instances the military folks may have saying that it's decreased. I don't know. All right, but as Christians, we are to stand together in one spirit, and this camp teaches group unity, group accountability. The verse also in Philippians says, "Stand firm in one spirit, striving together as one for the faith of the gospel." And here's this other part: "Without being frightened in any way by those who oppose you." Fear is a huge thing in the life of a lot of people, and there's different types of fears. There's physical fear, there's emotional fear, there's relational fear, there's even spiritual fear. Perfect love, the Bible says, drives out fear. And what this camp does is teaches us to trust in that perfect love of God. It puts us in uncomfortable situations a lot of times to face those fears. Whether that is the fear of backing off a 70-foot cliff to rappel down that cliff, or jumping off maybe a 15-foot ledge into a waterfall, the bottom of a waterfall, the Jacks River Falls that you've seen. Or maybe the fear of just, there's no way I can hike for 3 miles to get into Jacks River. Whatever that fear is, this camp is designed to push kids. Or it may be even praying out loud in a group. There are some youth that learned to overcome that fear this past summer in 2020 when we went to Mountain Area Ministries. So facing those fears and overcoming those fears is one of the goals of this camp. It's one of the purposes, is facing those fears not only as an individual but as a group. Okay, so that's one purpose, is to build that unity together. The second is humility. Philippians 2, 3-4 says this: "Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interests of others." Value others above yourself. That is in direct opposition to what our culture teaches, our American culture teaches, what the world teaches. The world always teaches, look out for numero uno, and that's me. And that's not Christian, and that's not biblical. So this camp is designed to teach our students humility, thinking of others first. C.S. Lewis once defined humility. If you've been in any of my Bible studies when I've talked about humility, you've heard this quote probably a million times. C.S. Lewis once said, "Humility is not thinking less of yourself, It's not thinking of yourself at all. Humility is not thinking less of yourself. It's just not thinking of yourself at all. And that's what the Bible is teaching here. And that's what this camp is designed to teach. Thinking of others and not yourself. Valuing others above yourself. Looking after their own interest. Yes, we're all created in the image of God. But in Christ, we're all brothers and sisters. And we are our brother's keeper. In fact, before we go on this camp, every student is required to sign what's called a full value contract, which means they're going to fully participate in this camp and they're going to fully value others. And when there are times where in the camp where that doesn't happen, then that student is lovingly confronted. Didn't you sign this full value contract? Didn't you want to go on this? Didn't you agree to go on this camp to learn how to value others above yourself? So that's the second purpose of why we go to this camp, Mountain Area Ministries, is to learn humility and to practice humility. Not just learn it up here, but to practice it out of the heart. All right, the third purpose of Mountain Area Ministries is the value of hard work. We do many mission projects, small mission projects, many as in M-I-N-I, not M-A-N-Y, but small mission projects, whether it's helping out at the school that allows us to stay there as our base camp, or whether it's going out and helping Copper Basin Crisis Ministry, which is like a tri-county. It serves three different counties, but it's like a Gateway Rescue Mission, a Salvation Army, kind of all rolled into one. We've worked there before to help those people. But we do small mission projects like that. But we also do hard work in some of the activities. I mentioned hiking into Jack's River. That's 3 miles in to get to the river, the double waterfall, and it's hiking 3 miles back out. It's basically an all-day trip. To hike in, spend a lot of time at the waterfall, and then we hike out. To get to the rappel site, you are going up it's called Star Mountain, and it's on the Hiwassee River in Tennessee. But you are going up, you're gaining 500 feet in elevation in 1/2 mile. 500 feet in a 1/2 mile hike. It's a pretty tough hike. And a lot of the students, we have to carry everything up there, all the ropes, all the rappelling equipment, the helmet, the gloves, the lunch that we eat up there, the water that we have to drink up there, everything we have to carry up. And it's a tough hike. You work for it. It's the value of hard work. Philippians 2, 12 to 13 says this, "Therefore, my dear friends, as you have always obeyed, not only in my presence, but now much more in my absence, continue to work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. For it is God who works in you to will and to act in order to fulfill his purpose." Work out your own salvation. Y'all, we have a responsibility. I've talked about this in one of my previous Bible studies. We have a responsibility to participate in God's work of salvation for us. It's not a works-based salvation. We are saved only and completely through the grace of Jesus Christ. Okay? Through his birth, life, death, resurrection, and ascension. That is what saves us. That is what pulls us into the family of God and puts us squarely in the embrace of God the Father. But to experience that, we have got to work at it. We've got to work at that. We've got to work at that that knowledge of the salvation. Okay, in Christian terms, the big word is sanctification. That's the whole process of sanctification, and it's not easy. So, doing the tough work on these camps kind of teaches a very real and a very physical object lesson of the toughness it takes and the perseverance it takes to work out our own salvation. And there are some very practical ways that we can do that even while we are doing those tough hikes and doing those tough activities, facing those fears and getting up. And it's everybody that's doing this. Okay? It's not just one person going up the hike, okay? It's everybody going up the hike. So that actually kind of feeds back into the whole thing that we talked about, the very first purpose, which is unity, okay? Standing firm in one spirit, contending as one for the faith. That all kind of goes hand in hand that you learn at this camp, Mountain Area Ministries, okay? So we got unity that we learn at the camp. We've got humility that we learn, and we get the value of hard work and perseverance. Okay, the fourth thing that we learn at this camp is what I call nipping it in the bud. Okay, Philippians 2:14 through the first part of verse 16 says this: do everything without grumbling or arguing. Do everything without grumbling or arguing. So, why? So that you may become blameless and pure, children of God without fault in a warped and crooked generation. Then you will shine among them like stars in the sky as you hold firmly to the word of life. Nipping the complaining and the grumbling in the bud is what happens in these camps. Yeah, you get tired on that 3-mile hike. If we do spelunking, I didn't mention that. We may do some spelunking, which is caving. You get nasty and wet, and there may be some complaining about that. Hiking up the rappel site, maybe complaining about that. Backing over the cliff. I can't do this. I can't do this. I'm not going to do this. Grumbling and complaining and arguing. Okay, nipping it in the bud. You learn the value of that lesson at this camp. Okay, we should do everything without grumbling or arguing. Again, that's part of that full value contract. You were agreeing not to grumble and argue. And yes, kids are going to be tempted to do that. Youth and students are going to be tempted to do that. But we try to nip that in the bud and remind them the purpose of this camp. Why are you here? Why does God have you here? Okay, and that is to become blameless and pure, without fault in a warped and crooked generation. And boy, do we see it all around the world, and even in America, a warped and crooked generation. Okay, so we want to grow in our faith so that we don't grumble and complain, so that, like Paul says in Philippians, we can shine among this crooked and warped generation like stars, and we will hold firmly to the word of life. I want to share a story about somebody that shined like a star in the sky. And honestly, I don't know if this person was a Christian or not, but it serves the purpose. And it kind of goes into the first 4 points that we talked about: unity, humility, value of hard work, and nip it in the bud. In my classroom, I had this poster for a long, long time. I had it in my college dorm room. I kept it over the years, and I put it in my classroom at school. And it's got this guy. It's a picture of a guy running hurdles, and he's running. He's jumping over this hurdle. And the caption at the bottom says this: if you can't win, make the one ahead of you break the record. Now the lesson's obvious, the implication's obvious. If you can't win, then you push that other person to be their best, break the record. And here's the story that kind of goes along with that I want to share. In December of 2012, there was a cross-country race that took place in Berlada, Spain. There was a Kenyan runner named Abel Mutai. He was only a few meters from the finish line. But this poor guy got confused with all of the signs about where the finish line was and all that. He got confused, and he stopped before he had gotten to the finish line. He just stopped. He thought he had crossed the finish line. He thought he'd won the race, but he had not. There was a Basque Spanish man who was running behind him. He was running second, a guy named Ivan Fernandez. He was behind him, and he saw what was going on. So he started shouting at Abel. And he started shouting at this Kenyan runner and gesturing to him to keep going, going. And Mutai didn't understand Spanish, couldn't really understand the gestures, okay, just stood there. So when this Spanish runner got to him, Fernandez, he put his hands on his shoulders and started pushing him towards the finish line. And so Mutai, the Kenyan runner, won the race. How easy would it have been for Fernandez just to keep running and pass him by and look at this guy thinking, boy, he's an idiot, and just keep on running, and then Fernandez would have won the race. But he didn't, okay? He didn't. Values are transmitted from generation to generation. They're not in the DNA. They're not in the bloodstream, okay? So what values are we teaching? Hopefully, it's this type of value of humility and self-sacrifice and service and doing everything without grumbling and complaining. Hebrews 10:24 says this, "Let us consider how we may spur one another on toward love and good deeds." That's what this camp teaches. That's what this camp teaches. All right, the very last thing, the fifth thing, and the fifth reason that we have these training camps, and this is the reason we go back every year to Mountain Area Ministries, is this: staying salty. Staying salty. Luke 14:34 to 35 says this. Jesus is teaching. And he's teaching about salt. And he says, salt is good, but if it loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? Well, the obvious answer is it can't. So, if it can't be made salty again, it is fit neither for the soil nor for the manure pile. It is just thrown out. Whoever has ears to hear, let them hear. Staying salty. This camp teaches our students, teaches you, even adult chaperones, how to stay salty. So those are the 5 lessons that we learn. Unity, humility, value of hard work, perseverance, nipping it in the bud, not grumbling or complaining, and staying salty. So if you haven't committed yourself to going this summer to Mountain Area Ministries, either on the youth trip or the college and career trip, I encourage you to do that. Let's pray. Gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for this evening, today, that we can gather. Pray, Father, that we would take the truths of these words, these 5 reasons that we go to Mountain Area Ministries, and Father, that we would see the value of them, that parents would see the value of them, that youth would see the value of them, that college and career folks would see the value of them, and want to, and desire, and commit to learn these principles and these values and practice them in their lives. Thank you for your patience with us, but more than that, thank you for your eternal and long-suffering love for us in Jesus Christ. And it's in His name we pray.